Are you with us, Maria? IT Maria, can you confirm you're with us, please? I think we're a little bit stuck, Adam.
Yeah, we'll just wait a second, Derek.
Okay.
Yeah, they usually should come in and just confirm before we go live.
Okay.
Camera off, please.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Ramesh.
Thank you. I'll switch off my camera now.
And your microphone, please.
Yes, yeah.
Derek, if it helps, I've just checked YouTube and we do seem to be streaming live at the moment.
Okay. If that's okay with you, Adam, we'll carry on, shall we?
Yep, let's begin, Derek.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Welcome to Rugby Borough Council's July Cabinet meeting. My name is Councillor Derek Poole. I'm the Deputy Leader of the Council, and for this meeting I'll be chairing the Cabinet for today. This meeting is being publicly streamed via Microsoft Teams. Before we begin working through the agenda, I would like to bring your attention to a minute's silence, please, for the 25 years of the Srebrenica genocide. And we'll have 1 minute from now, please. Thank you. Before we begin working through the agenda, I'll go through some rules on the procedure for Microsoft Teams. The web streaming of this meeting is being monitored by our IT services. And if at any point there are any streaming issues, then I will be informed and the meeting will be adjourned to such times that the technical issues can be resolved. If by any reason or during the course of the meeting, any member of the Cabinet or committee is having connection issues, there will be a short adjournment of up to 5 minutes to determine whether the connections issues can be resolved. If following the adjournment, the connection issues cannot be resolved, then providing the meeting remains quorate, it will continue. It will be deemed that the member with the connection issue has left the meeting and will no longer be able to participate. For all attendees who could switch off your microphones and cameras now, please. For members of the Cabinet and the committee, your microphone and cameras should be switched off unless you are speaking. If you wish to speak during the meeting, please use the raise your hand function and wait for me to ask you to speak. The voting will be the virtual meetings use of raise the hand function. I will call on the Democratic Service Officer to confirm the vote. Are there any questions before we move on to the agenda? Thank you. I will now ask the Democratic Service Officer to confirm the attendees for the meeting. This will be for Cabinet members and opposition group leaders only. Claire?
Thank you, Chair. So obviously you're here, and then Councillor Mrs. Crane,
Yes.
Councillor Ms. Robbins,
Here.
Councillor Roberts,
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Simpson Vince,
Here.
Councillor Roodhouse,
Yes, here.
and Councillor Mrs. O'Rourke.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Claire. We'll move on to the agenda. Thank you. I'll confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of June 2020, please. I'll move the meeting, the minutes. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any apologies, Mr. Executive Director, please?
We just need to confirm the vote on the minutes, Chair, first.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry. Can we confirm by show of hands, please, the confirmation of the minutes?
So that's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. You'll have your hands, please. Executive Director, apologies, item number 2, please. Are there any apologies for the meeting, please?
Yes, Chair, I have apologies from Councillor Lowe.
Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. To receive declarations of interest of A, non-pecuniary. Are there any declarations of interest, please? No. Subsection 3, pecuniary interest defined by the council's code of conduct for councillors. Okay, thank you. And C, notice under section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992, non-payment of community charge or council tax. No, thank you. Move on to agenda item 4. Mr. Executive Director, are there any questions, please?
No, there were no questions submitted, Chair.
Thank you. Go on to the portfolios. The growth and investment portfolio, there's nothing to report on this meeting. We'll go on to agenda item 5, corporate resources portfolio. Councillor Ms. Robbins, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to move the recommendation as printed with regards to changing places. And I think this is an excellent step forward, and I look forward to it being welcomed by the whole of council. Thank you. Move the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. O'Rourke, is there any questions?
Can we have a seconder, please, Chair?
Oh, yes, sorry. Have a seconder, please, for that.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Mrs. Crane.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd just like to say a few words, actually. This is fantastic news for the town. And I'd really like to say a big thank you to all those officers that worked so hard to actually make sure this has happened. We are in the minority in Warwickshire in terms of having this facility. So it's a really big thing that we make our town centre accessible to all. So well done to the officers, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Rourke. Councillor Roodhouse, have you any questions?
Oops, just get the right buttons in place. No, I'd echo the comments back, and I recognise this is going to full council as well, but it has taken some time to get this into position in the town. But it's, I think it's a good news story for us all.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Roodhouse. Right, it's been moved and seconded. I can see Councillor Douglas has got his hand up. I'm sorry, you can't ask any questions, Councillor Douglas. It's only for group leaders, and your leader has spoken. Thank you. Been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show your hands.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you, Claire. Move on to agenda item 6, Communities and Homes Portfolio Rent Arrears. Councillor Mrs Emma Crane.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is a really welcome report from officers. It's proposing the introduction of a new piece of software which will help to support the collection of rent arrears by using algorithms to identify tenants who are at risk of falling into arrears. So the existing processes are very time intensive, and this new system will help us to identify and prioritise cases at a really early stage. And it will also allow officers to help support those vulnerable families who are at risk of falling into arrears. So I really welcome this report, and I move the report and the recommendations in it.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mrs Crane from Councillor Roodhouse?
Oh,
Got in first there.
Well, you got your hand up, Jerry. I saw you.
Well, there you go. Yeah, the one is I recognise that this is a recognised software company that's used across the country. I was suppose a little bit surprised by some of the things that have been found through the work process to it. I couldn't quite see within the report, come back to me later, sort of how much do you think this will actually benefit the council in relation to the rent arrears? Because I mean, we're going into some difficult times as well at the moment going forward. So will this make us more reactive? My reading is possibly yes.
Councillor Mrs Crane, do you like to reply?
Yes, I would just reply that yes, the hope is very much that this will ensure, robust enforcement at an early stage so that people don't fall into arrears. Yeah, this is the aim of it. It's also going to be a lot more efficient for officers as well in terms of identifying those people at risk.
Thank you, Mrs Crane. Mrs O'Rourke, Councillor Mrs O'Rourke.
yeah, similar to Jerry, really. I mean, one of the things I suppose I want to know, it sort of talks about it's been based on algorithms and this and that. I just wondered if it's been COVID proofed, because obviously the scenarios that we find ourselves in today's world are very different to the ones of yesterday when the software would have been designed. So I would like a bit more information about how we've, factored that into this system. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Can I show that all those in favour, please?
Chair, I've got 4 members of Cabinet that have raised their hands. I think, I don't know if you haven't raised your hand.
Yeah, I believe Chair has just lost connection, so we'll just hold on a minute or two for him to return, and then we'll record the vote.
Hello, Aftab. Thank you for that. I just, for some reason, just dropped completely out and went back to a blank screen. Can you hear me?
Yes, Chair, you need to vote yourself now, Chair, on that last item.
Okay.
Yep, so that's unanimous, Chair. Thank you.
I do apologise about that. I had no control over that whatsoever. Right, swiftly moving on to agenda item 7, public space protection orders. Councillor Howard Roberts, please.
Thank you, Chair. This issue is now being the use of public space protection orders, although antisocial behaviour was dealt with by the Crime and Policing Act. Following several requests for alleyways to be closed, the Environment and Growth Overview and Scrutiny Committee led a task group review of this matter and have produced a draft policy for consideration this evening. I'd like to thank Ian Picker, if he's here, for leading the task and finish group. Is Ian present?
Yeah, Councillor Picker is here. He has his hand up, Howard. I'll call on him now.
I would invite him to say a few words about how they came to the conclusions they did.
Okay, thank you, Howard. Councillor Picker.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to start by thanking all the members of the Working Party and the officers for putting this draft policy together. I think it is an important policy for us to adopt, as it will give us a strong policy we can put in place for certain areas of antisocial behaviour which are identified in the draft policy, where we have seen some fairly significant issues. It is a policy that I think the entire working group hopes will be used sparingly and only in areas where it's absolutely needed. But the ability to close off areas that are subject to severe antisocial behaviour is one that I think can be used to effect in certain instances, and so I hope that Cabinet adopts it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Picker. There is an amendment in the report, Claire. It's mentioned that this is Hill Morton. In fact, it is in Paddocks. Could we have that changed before it goes to council, please?
Yes, Chair, we can amend that so the minutes will reflect that amendment, and that will be reflected for the council report.
Thank you. Councillor Roadhouse.
Sorry, Chair, we've still not had the item seconded.
I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Robbins, Mrs. Robbins. All those in favour?
Hang on.
We've not had questions from Councillors O'Rourke and Roodhouse yet, Chair.
Okay, we'll do it that way. Councillor Roodhouse.
Thank you, Derek. Just within the report, I welcome the report. I was just looking on Appendix 1, the Rugby Borough Council process, the flow diagram that's been put in there, and you've got request for gating order, then stage 1 investigation. I'm just wondering whether it should be a lot higher, also within there, sort of consulting with residents and people in localities where some of these are, to make sure that the investigation is matching up to the request for gating orders. It talks about the evaluate evidence and alternative solutions, consult stakeholders and local councillors. I'm just wondering whether actually we should actually be putting in there, something about residents. If that could be added, that would be, I think, helpful.
I think you make a good point, Councillor, and I think we were happy to consider that.
Okay.
I think we take closing off people's rights of way very seriously. It's not done lightly, and we would expect that only in very exceptional cases to use the powers that we have. But I think consulting residents is really important.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Roodhouse, your comments have been noted, and obviously the portfolio holder and the task group chairman will take that back and hopefully sort that problem out for you. If you could remove your hand, please. Councillor Mrs. O'Rourke.
No comments, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. The following items are on block, and I'll move them from the chair. There's also an amendment on the members' allowances, an appendix to Claire, where it's got members' allowances for committees. There's no members' allowances for the chair of planning. It's been omitted for some reason.
Okay, Chair, we'll get that amended so that list reflects the full list of chairs.
Okay, thank you. With that amendment, can I move it from the chair? Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Chair.
Okay. All those in favour then, please. Are there any questions on those items around block? No. Okay, Claire, are we all in favour?
Yes, so that's unanimous, Chair.
Okay, thank you.